Hi friends, Mickey Mankis here and welcome to Out the Back Door. Today I'm going to be canning beets, Detroit Reds. Join me. So yesterday I was very blessed. I had a couple of friends come over and they were working in the garden for me, being I still can't bend over. And I had them pick all the Detroit Reds. I still have golden beets out there, but I said I need to work on one thing at a time, so let's not get too carried away harvesting everything. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be cutting off the greens. I'm going to leave about 1.5 to 2 inches on the top here, and I'm not cutting off the little tail on here on the root. So we've got a storm coming in, and I'm guessing it's about an hour away, so I really need to kick it in gear and get these all cleaned up and everything so I can get back into the house before it hits. I'm grateful that we do have the storm coming because we need the rain desperately because of the drought that we've been in. So I want to say, don't throw your beet greens away. I am going to be washing these also, and I dehydrate them, and I'm also going to be sauteing up some. I slice them up and I saute them in with bacon and onion and everything. Really good. So, alright, like I said, my first step is I need to go and cut all the greens off, and then I'm going to start washing these up. Another thing about the beet greens is if I've got, some nasty ones here that aren't very good, if you've got livestock, feed them to your livestock. Otherwise, Mr. Mankis said he wants them to go out and feed the deer because the deer like beets also. When I dehydrate these, I will grind them up into a powder then, so I've got beet green powder. I actually collect a lot of the greens from my garden, including carrot tops, some of the lettuce and spinach and everything, and dehydrate that. And I mix it all together, so I've got my own super green powder mix that I can use in smoothies or whatever. I'm not going to pay for all those expensive ones, plus I don't know what's in them. If you've never done beets before, in order to get them peeled, we are going to parboil them. And that's why I'm leaving part of the stem on and leaving the tip, because with the red ones, they bleed a lot. And we don't want to lose all of the color. They are going to bleed into the water somewhat, but as long as we're leaving the tops and the tips on, they won't bleed as much. Also, when you want to use beet greens for salad, you're going to want to pick them when the beets are really small, and trim off, some of the greens. A size like this is nice and tender for salads. The big, large leaves like this are going to be a little bit harder, not as nice and flavorful for a salad. And so that's why I said I am going to be dehydrating these. And then also sauteing them. So they do saute up nice. It would be kind of like doing kale. I know these are very large. I should have been out there like before I went in for surgery in order to pick these, but I didn't have refrigerator space in order to store them in so that I could do them now. So the larger they get, the woodier they're going to get. And I'm hoping that they're not really bad, but I don't know if you can see, some of the critters, bugs or whatever have been nibbling at that. And when it's a small amount like this, I really don't mind, because once I blanch them and everything and peel them, I can, just take a paring knife and cut that area away, and it's not a big deal. I'm not going to throw that big of a beet away because it's got a few little bite marks in it. Now, I did toss a couple that were like really chewed up big time towards the top, because we end up getting rabbits and squirrels and chipmunks in there. And when I first said that I was going to be making pickled beets and I'm using the Detroit Reds, I do pickled beets. I don't do a spiced pickled beet. So this isn't going to have any of the warm spices in it like cinnamon, nutmeg, allspice, any of that. I don't care for that type of a pickled beet. You may like that. You're welcome to go and search out a different recipe, but I'm just going to be making regular pickled beets. I'm just going to give these a quick rinse to get the big stuff off to begin with. I've got my little vegetable scrubby here, and I am going to be scrubbing these down more. The different taste between like a Detroit red, or actually any type of a red beet in comparison to like golden, my sister said they taste like dirt. She had bought canned beets from the store. I'm thinking, how can you say it tastes like dirt? Because I mean, those are cleaned so well and everything. She goes, they taste like dirt. And I did read, there was a blogger that had put it out there that the golden ones have a much cleaner taste to them in comparison to the earthy taste of the red beets. And I'm thinking, okay, earthy, yeah. Now I understand why my sister said they taste like dirt. But anyway, I did grow the golden beets for the first time this year, and I tried when it was small, and it was like, oh, a wonderful flavor, a little more mild, and it doesn't have the earthy taste to it. So when I get to those, I'll be doing another video for that. Mr. Mankus is waiting for me to make borscht for him. Make sure that you're getting the water squirted up into like where the greens were coming out and everything. And make sure you've got the dirt and any little bugs that may be in there are washed out. All right, I'm gonna keep scrubbing. I'm gonna put these clean ones in another bin so I don't get them all mixed up and everything. And when we get to the next step, I'll get right back to you. All right, I've got the beets back into the house now. They're all washed up and cleaned. I have a stock pot of hot water on the burner right now. I'm trying to bring that up to a boil because that's gonna be our next step. We wanna boil our beets. The reason for boiling the beets is for two reasons. One, we're going to be able to remove the skins a lot easier, and two, it's going to tenderize our beets a little bit more before we start chopping them up and getting them into the jars for processing. Now I have two different size beets here. I've got like the smaller size beets, and then I have the larger ones. The smaller size beets I'm going to boil for approximately 20 minutes. The larger ones, yeah, that's a good size one. The larger beets I'm going to cook for approximately 35 to 40 minutes because of their size. Now, once I get these all cooked up and everything, I am going to be filling my sink with cold water, and then I'll take them out and plunge them into the cold water to stop the cooking process, and I do want them cooled down so I can handle them easily. So when we get to that step, I'll show you. I've got all the beets boiled, and I've got the large ones in the cool water right now cooling down. I am going to start cutting and peeling the small ones. It's a simple enough process. One thing you can see, I've got a grubby shirt on with stains on it, and it's kind of a reddish tone anyway. The reason I'm saying that is sometimes I get a little carried away and I get sloppy, and I don't want beet stains all over, because beet does stain. And as far as like trying to get it off the cutting board and stuff like that, we can use salt in order to clean it up, and it helps kind of remove it. But my hands are probably going to get all red, and just in case I was splattering. So anyway, you can see that the peels are starting. Look at how easy those came off already. But normally what I'm doing, I've got my compost in here with me. I'm just going to be trimming off the end and the top. So anyway, this is what we're going to be doing with the rest of the beets, and then I'll start cutting them up after that. Once I do get to that point, I'm going to show you how to make the brine and everything while I'm cutting these up, and we'll go from there. If you've got any areas towards the top that they didn't look the nicest, maybe a couple of bugs kind of got at them and stuff, go ahead and cut it down further. It isn't going to hurt the rest of it, but I cut the tops off, and I'm cutting the root tail off here, and this is how easy they're going to peel. Paper towel works well too, because then you can grab a hold of it easier. And you probably won't get as red of hands if you're using the paper towel. I think I might have to put my glasses on so I can see and make sure that I've gotten every bit of the peel off. We're going to use some of the cooking water in our brine, so don't throw that away yet. Have you ever heard before that the color of a vegetable kind of relates to the organs in your body? So this beautiful red color that we have here for the beets is actually really healthy for your heart, your blood, the circulatory system. I want to show you something. When I said go ahead and trim off the top edges and stuff here, if you've got any areas that are like not perfect, imperfections, go ahead and use your vegetable peeler and just go around the edge there to clean it up. Now, as long as I'm doing this, I'm just going to keep going all the way around on this one. But that way, if you are seeing like there may have been like a dimple or something in the side of the beet, you want to make sure that that all gets cleaned out. So that's what I'm using the vegetable peeler for, just cleaning those areas out. We don't want any spots or blemishes in our beets when we start chopping them up and we're going to can them. All the beets are peeled, and before I start chunking them up, I am going to get my hot water bath canner going. I've got the heat underneath that to bring the temperature up. I don't want it at a rolling boil when I put my jars in because I'm going to be cold pack, raw packing them. I'm not going to heat my beets back up to do this. The brine is going to be hot. My jars are room temperature and everything, so we're going to slowly raise that temp up once we put the jars into the canner, and then once we come to a boil, then we're going to start timing the process. So while that's heating up, I'm also going to get my brine ready. And one thing about this recipe for pickled beets is I looked up online many different times to see what other people are doing. And any recipe that I saw for pickled beets, it was spiced pickled beets. It wasn't just plain pickled beets, even though the recipe said pickled beets. They're putting allspice, cloves, cinnamon, different things like that in there. And I did not want that. I like just a plain, pure, simple pickled beet. And that's the recipe I'm going to be sharing with you today. So I'm multiplying this by 4 with the amount of beets that I have. Now, remember I had said before that the larger beets may be a little bit more fibrous, and I'm still going to use them because I've done this in the past. I wasn't able to get out there and harvest them in time because of my surgery and everything, so the smaller ones are going to work well. But if you pick your beets when they're like maybe 2 to 3 inches, that's actually the perfect size for canning, and you can also do them whole that way. I'm going to be cutting mine into chunks. You can also cut them into slices, like a lot of people will buy like a can or a jar of pickled beets from the store. They come in nice slices. Well, I've done it in the past, and to me it's just like one extra step I don't really need to take unless I'm going to make a nice presentation for somebody. So I'm just going to be chunking these up. Now the recipe calls for 1 cup of water, beet water, and 1 cup of vinegar, white vinegar, and you want at least a 5% acidity. I'm going to do 4 cups of the beet water and 4 cups of the vinegar. And I'm hoping this is going to be enough to take care of all the beets that I want to do. I've got pint-sized jars all ready to go. I've already sterilized them and everything. I'm using regular mouth. If you're doing slices, you probably want to use wide mouth because then they fit down in there nicely. But as long as I'm doing chunks, I didn't care. I'm just going to use the regular mouth pint jars. Alright, I was just a little shy. Got to dump more in. Okay. So I've got 4 cups of my white vinegar that I'm going to dump into another pan here. Now I've removed my beet water from the heat. It's still hot, and I'm going to get 4 cups of that. Okay, the other ingredients that I'm going to need with the beet water and the vinegar is going to be sugar and salt. Now, beets are high in sugar naturally, but this is going to help bring out a little bit more of the sweetness. So the recipe normally calls for 1/4 cup of sugar. Okay, the next thing that I want to do is I'm going to use salt. This is also used as a flavoring, but it's preserving also with the vinegar in there as far as the pickling. Normal recipe calls for 1 tablespoon of salt. I'm going to have to put 4. It may sound like a lot of salt in there, but when I've made them in the past, I keep forgetting to change my recipe. I always end up sprinkling a little more salt on them after I take them out and I'm going to eat them. It's just like, didn't have quite enough. Now, somebody had told me at one time, you really don't want to put the salt in there because it's going to draw the color out of the beets. I haven't had an issue with that, especially because I'm going to be using the beet water. So, all right, let me get a flame under here. And I'm going to be bringing that up to a boil. I'm going to let the sugar and the salt dissolve. I'll stir it periodically and everything, and once that's good, then I'm going to start getting the jars all ready. I'm going to start dicing up all the beets right now while I'm waiting for this to heat up. Now, nice sizes are approximately, I'm doing mine maybe 1/2 inch size or so. Now, I had beet juice flying everywhere when I was peeling these. It was like, oh goodness. So please be aware when you were doing that, that you could have a mess. If you have natural woodwork, that's why I didn't use my wooden cutting board, because it will stain. I had to make sure some of this doesn't have a protective finish on the table anymore, and I had to watch it because I noticed I was getting beet juice on there, and it did start right away, and I'm like, yeah, I could just hear Mr. Mankus in the back of my head going, what did you do to the table? So anyway, okay, I'm going to just keep chopping these up, and we will get to the next step then. I've got my bowl full all chopped up of my beets and everything, and I am going to start loading my jars. I turned the temperature up a little bit on the brine right now, so once I get these loaded, I'm going to be able to start pouring that in. We're going to leave a 1/2 inch headspace. Now, I did notice, I forgot that I had grown like 3 different types of beets. I did the Detroit Red, and that's what I am canning today. I also did golden beets, and then I did a mixture. And I think some of the larger beets that I have in here may have come from the mixture one. So they're not quite as dark as the Detroit Red. Oh, I didn't mention earlier when I was talking about the salt, please don't use table salt. You can use any type of salt that you want, but don't use table salt. Because of the iodine in there, it'll end up making your liquid cloudy, and that's just not a very nice presentation. All right, I'll get back to you in a short bit. You want to make sure that your jars are packed. I'm going to show you a cheater way of doing it. All I do is hold my hand over the top and kind of give it a spank on the bottom. And see, they settle down a little bit more. That way I can get a little bit more into each jar, and they're not going to be floating all over the place in liquid because I am getting them in there packed. Okay, we're going to be leaving a 1/2 inch headspace, and we are going to be processing these. No matter if you're doing pints or quarts, you want to process them for 30 minutes. So once you do come up to a boil, then you can start timing it. Make sure you get the air bubbles out. If we have to add more brine to it, that's fine. Okay, I did have to add a little bit more brine to a couple of my jars after I debubbled. And just make sure that you're wiping your rims down really well. I've got a wet paper towel here that I'm doing that to. I've got the second batch in the canner right now, and I'm waiting for that to come up to temp. Then I can start timing that for 30 minutes. The first batch is out here. The lids have been pinging and singing, and I'm not used to hearing that, so it's kind of fun. So anyway, that's how I make my pickled beets. And like I said, I don't make a spiced pickled beet. I just make a plain, simple pickled beet. And a lot of times this is what you're going to find at the grocery store. So I hope you give it a try. I really enjoy it, and look forward to the next video that I do doing the golden beets, because I'm going to do those a little bit differently. So I want to thank you for joining me today. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell, and give me a thumbs up and share. And if you have any comments or questions, please leave them below, because I really would like to hear from you. So until next time, you have a wonderful day. God bless.